All right, everyone. Welcome to the Exceptional Educators Playbook. I'm Chasity Craft, the literacy consultant here at KVEG, and I have with me Miss Vonda Adams. She's one of our math consultants. She does the elementary math. She's here today to help me. She's going to monitor the chat box for me and add some comments. She's got some gen ed background. She taught primary language arts also. So she's here to help me with that. We encourage you to drop any comments or questions in the chat box, and she's there to monitor that for us. The purpose of this podcast is to offer professional learning opportunities to meet the needs of you guys while giving you a platform to share your expertise. So every month, we're going to highlight a different topic that every educator needs to know. Each week, that topic will be broken down into content-specific categories. Week 1 will explain what it would look like in literacy. Week 2 will show how it works in math. Week 3 will allow us to look at the topic through a social, emotional behavior lens. And week 4 will focus on the modifications and models for the low incidence community. We're going to be discussing instructional strategies and that educational tools that you guys can take back and use immediately in your classroom, and you will have the opportunity to share your successes, ideas, and questions so that we can all learn from each other. One of the ways we've done that is the Google form that I had sent out earlier to get some questions, and then and also, as you all can tell, we've got a couple guests with us today, and then we want to hear your ideas and questions in our chat. So today we're going to be discussing progress monitoring and literacy. So we're very excited to have Miss Dina Johnson and Stephanie Nichols as our guests today. Both of these ladies, they're special education teachers at Letcher Elementary in Letcher County. So they are doing a phenomenal job with their virtual progress monitoring, I hear. And they're going to share with you guys today how they are implementing that in their individual settings and how they're documenting their efforts. So I'm really super excited to have them here because I have talked with them the other day, and the stuff that they had to share with you today is phenomenal. So we're going to be answering some questions I had sent out on the Google survey. So I call that our mailbag. We have took those questions that you all sent to me, and I discussed it with these ladies, and then we just kind of developed some content in hopes that we can answer the questions that you have. Because again, the whole point of this is to get what you need. And so again, if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the chat. So some of the questions that we're going to be addressing today is easier strategies to disseminate your tasks, to get that work out. How does progress monitoring look during the virtual learning? And what are some effective and efficient ways to progress monitor? So these ladies are going to share with us today what that looks like. So now on to you two. Can you guys take us from the beginning on how you started with this, how you began with your groups and how you determined your groups, and then what you did and how you got that set up and going?
First of all,
start,
if you want to, yes, please.
Matter.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that the start of it is something that probably comes natural as for any educator, but you've got to get to know your student population. So we very thoroughly looked at our students as IEPs and pulled out their goals and their benchmarks and grouped those students together based on their goals for resource groups. And some based in ability-based groups as well. So that's how we created our groups, and in that what we could work with, together at once. Steph primarily does the one-on-one, and then I do more group work, although she does some groups as well, and I do some one-on-ones, but she is primarily the one-on-one, and I primarily do the resource groups for 4th grade. But with that said, we also needed a baseline to start from, and we utilize the IXL program in our county. And so we had our students, get on there and complete their diagnostic assessments in both language art and mathematics. And that gave us a starting point. And based on that data, we could further drive our instruction in that some students had showed some regression since we went out in March for the NTI and then the summer. So the groups had to be manipulated some and moved around, but getting to know your student population is the most important and effective thing that you can do in your starting point. So once we had all that behind us, we had our groups in line, we could better serve them and set up a plan and how we were going to serve them.
Now, didn't you tell me earlier that you had the way that you grouped your students were based on their IEP goals?
To come to the office at this time, please.
Based on their IEP goals, if they had similar goals, you group those together.
Yes.
So that, okay.
Right, yes. If they had similar goals, we grouped those together initially. But we also utilize the IXL data in terms of maybe manipulating those groups, because we did see some regression even from what their IEP goals had stated due to the whole circumstances and then the summer.
And that's one of the reasons we decided that some students needed that one-on-one to try to bring them back up to where they were when we went out of school, back in the spring, to make sure that we could start on their IEP goals, but they needed that one-on-one, that reteaching before we could get to that point.
Right. That's a very good point. Okay, so go ahead and share with us some of the tools that you guys have used when you were doing both. You have done both live sessions and recorded sessions, the asynchronous and the synchronous learning. So if you don't mind, share with us what you've been doing for that.
We'll send it in my small groups, and even on one-on-one, we use whiteboards a lot, especially on one-on-one situations. We do math problems together. We write sentences on our whiteboards, and you can progress monitor right there. You can, if they can't write a complete sentence using a capital or punctuation, and that's one of their goals of their IEP, you can monitor it right there, and then you can clear up any misconceptions at that point. We also use the 6-minute fluency program. I copy those and make those PDFs so I can share my screen and we can monitor their fluency. Another program I use sometimes is Epic. It's getepic.com, and there are books and things, and you can pick their level. And then there's also some comprehension questions. A lot of those are higher level questions. We do those together. And like I said, that's a great time to clear up any misconceptions. And we even do like flashcards with sight words, and that's helping to get them to the point where their IEP would start working toward their goals again.
Okay, I like that. That's good. That 6-minute fluency is very effective.
It is.
I like that.
And the kids get really excited about it, seeing their own progress.
Right.
It makes them want to do the program.
Yes, they get excited.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, Christina, what you got for us?
For the asynchronous learning, I'll touch on it some. That's what we have been referring to as our dead lesson videos. But I have found that through doing those explicit lesson videos that students are getting more of me than I feel like they've ever been able to get of me. I drop in a video, an explicit lesson video that is aligned to their goal and objectives every single week. So for instance, if a child has a goal in reading, writing, and math, they will receive one at minimum, usually 2 videos per week. And I really try to align those videos with their objectives. So for instance, maybe one of their writing objectives is to identify and use pronouns. And so I would make a explicit lesson video over that and modeling how to identify those and things of that nature. And at the end of the video, I primarily use Google Slides or a PowerPoint, and it would be me modeling. And I try to make it as interactive as possible, even though that you're really not live with your students for these lessons. So, you know, I put music behind them, and I'm like, okay, grab an adult in your house and get your whiteboards, and I'm trusting that you're going to do this with me, and I'll give them some wait time, even though they're really not there. I've even done repeat after me before. And it's odd sometimes, you know, you're really staring at a wall, but I think it works. But for their assessment, I give them a formative assessment after every video, just to kind of monitor and see, you know, did this help them? Did it not further drive my instruction? And we primarily use Google Slides for that, and I like Google Slides in that it allows my children to be interactive. They can manipulate text boxes and drag things from here to there. It's really good for math in that they can have those manipulatives. You know, we've sent home whiteboards and backpacks with resources in it, but when they're on a computer, to have that right there in front of them, they don't have to get up and go get anything. They're dragging cubes, they're dragging cookies from the cookie jar, putting cookies in the cookie jar to work out, you know, problems. So, but I always give them an assessment to see, you know, was I effective in this? You know, should I do something different? And usually in those videos, I try to keep as closely as I can to if we were in the real classroom. There's even an I do it portion, which I'm, you know, primarily modeling. A we do it portion, or guided practice, I call it in the videos. And then their independent practice is actually their assessment that they pull up in their classwork tab. So that's how I have things set up on my end, and as far as like the asynchronous learning aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm going to start calling you Vonda because you're hijacking and talking about math on my literacy podcast, Miss Dina.
It's really good for literacy too. I have to say that.
Go ahead.
I affectionately call that math moments.
But
it's good for literacy too, because they can self-assess. So I can ask them a question and I can have the answer covered. They have to type, and then they can uncover and self-assess. And then there's sometimes some Google Slides you can make where they can click on an A, B, or C choice, and if it's wrong, it'll be a sad face. And then they can try again. So
well,
it's good for literacy too, I promise.
Well, it is, and I was going to mention, because also later we have set up a Google Classroom for anybody who wants to join that's listening to this podcast, and Vonda is going to drop the class code into the chat box, and so that you could just use that code and join. But Dina has added some of those videos and lessons that she just mentioned. And I've watched some of them, and they are, I mean, I was blown away. And it's almost like you're sitting there with her. It's her talking, going through it. But the one of her Google Slides assessment it was reading comprehension. And they were having to drag down if the answer was A, B, or C, and then they would drag it down. And she's got I think a main, like point of view maybe, in there, and there's a writing. There's several in there. I have, you know, but yeah, there's a lot of literacy things in there too. One thing too that you have in there is you all use Google Forms, and it's another effective way. And you can see those results. You know, they chart it for you and all that. And I did look, your Google Forms, which is understandable, it is restricted to Letcher County. So, and that's fine, because I know you gotta keep it that way, and that's fine. But I left those in there because at least people can see what you do is you look at that lesson and you just wrote questions from that lesson into a Google form. And so I just left that secured. We don't want you all to have to open that up or anything like that. But so you've used the Google Forms in there effectively as well. So
and something I like with the Google Forms, Chas, is especially for literacy, we have a lot of struggling readers. And I do 4th grade and Steph does 5th grade, although we work very closely together and work with all the children. I'm primarily 4th, and I have a much lower group of children than I've ever had at that grade this year. So on the Google Forms, I can slide in a video or audio clip, either way you want to do it, and you can actually read every single question and every single choice for your multiple choices questions out to them, so that they're not just sitting there, because the Google form is usually if you see one, it's just you read it and you choose A, B, C, or D. Some you can type in, but for those struggling readers, that's a really huge thing for them, is to be able to hear those questions read to them. Gives them a fair shot.
And another thing Dina and I had talked about when we started planning on one-on-one videos, whatever, we wanted it to be a routine for them. So,
absolutely,
when we get online, whether it's video, live, whatever, we wanted them to be the same routine that they see in our classroom. So when they get on and watch a video, they know the expectations, they know the way the routine is going to be in that video. And the same way, we go over our target. We talk about, we both do like a kindness quote for the day. And it's, so when they come back in person, they're not going to miss a beat. It's going to be exactly like it was in the videos and when they were at home, and that was very important to both of us, that we wanted it to be the same routine, because our kids need that.
Yeah, they need consistency. That's a huge thing. And I think with the virtual learning, that is hard to find as a teacher. What do I want this to look like? How can I keep this consistent? There's so many tools out there and so many resources, and what is this supposed to look like? You need to think about your student population first, and then secondly, what works for you? How can you align this as close as you can to what you would do in your normal classroom? And that's what Steph and I have both tried to do, because with struggling learners or learners in general, regular ed population too, they have to have that consistency. They go that classroom management, you have to have that before they can ever learn anything. So we wanted, like she said, it to look as closely as possible to what we would be doing in the classroom. And by doing like the kindness quotes and throwing those in there and a little inspiration, or pulling in some social stories into your literacy, you're hitting on those children who have behavior goals. That's something that's really hard to work with and monitor in virtual learning. So if you can kind of embed that within your core content, that's the way to go for the virtual learning. Even if we throw those kindness quotes in there at the beginning of all of our videos, and I just kind of talk to them about it for a second. But I think that it's very important, and it sticks with them.
Yeah, that's
and this was something that was not easy to do. There were several hours, and and a lot of conversations between the two of us of what we wanted it to look like, and we wanted it to be consistent, whether they see me or whether they see Dina, because when they're going to be back, they're going to be seeing us both.
Right.
And we wanted to be, on the same page, and we thought that would be easier for the kids as well.
That's great. And two, you do all this work up front, and then you have this now. You have those videos, even when you're back in person, you can use those videos in your centers and things for your reteaching as well when you're having to do some one-on-one with other kids. So it's a lot of work up front, but
absolutely
you'll have it. Couple of things. I wanted you to talk about that GamKit. One last thing, if you'll talk about that, and then we'll move on. But that's awesome. So if you don't care to tell them about that.
Okay. So GamKit is a virtual game that students can earn virtual money playing. So the live lessons for me, especially with the resource group, were challenging. One-on-one, is you can kind of guides itself, I guess you could say. But I'm like, what can these live lessons look like? Because, I want consistency with those as well, and I want a routine. So GamKit was my game changer. So my students, a lot of them are, ADHD and they're having a really hard time with the virtual learning, sitting in front of the computer. So how could I get that engagement component and also get them learning and get data? So all of those things combined into one is GamKit. So GamKit is just an online virtual game. You can go to GamKit.com, and I posted that in our Google Classroom and even directions for you to use. You can do like a 30-day free trial if you love it, sign up for it. You probably will. But so you get in there, and it's so super simple. You click the Educator login, you sign yourself up. You can put in classes if you want to, but you don't have to, because you give them a code, and so it kind of creates itself every time. So for instance, say that you are doing like a reading live resource group or writing, you can go in and you can make yourself what they call a kit. So you can pull questions from a bank that their reading and writing teachers have already composed and put in there. And you can literally just pull them over into your kit, like that question, don't like that question, and you can find those questions just by typing in a keyword. So say, for instance, we are going to learn about, I'll use pronouns again. So you just kind of type in pronouns, and there's just a whole list of questions for you. So you pull them over. It lasts 10 minutes. I like repeated questions because it tells them whether they're incorrect or correct. So it gives them that ability to find some success. So I don't do too many questions at once, but I put them in there. I get on my live session with my children, and I'm like, okay, we're going to GamKit today. I put the code over in the chat and the link. They just click it. It brings it right up. They don't struggle with that. I was concerned about that at first because I'm like, we're moving from one platform to another. How, can I trust that this is going to work? So I had to have a backup plan at first. Well, it worked wonderfully. They were able to do it. And now this is 4th grade, but you probably would want to say that they're more on a 2nd grade level overall. So I would suggest, you can do this with 2nd grade up for regular ed, probably 3rd, 4th for special ed and up. But anyways, they just click on that link, pulls it up for them. They type in a code, and the game starts. So every question that they get correct, they earn virtual money. And they can use that money to ask peers, blur peers, and what that means is that they literally, like, Tommy's in the lead, and I want to beat him, so I'm going to use a little bit of my cash here that I've got saved up, and I'm going to ice him. So he's frozen. He can't answer any questions right now. And they love it. And you can also, what I think is amazing is, like I was talking about earlier, for your struggling readers to read those questions, there is an audio clip button. You just tap it. There's no insertion of, voiceovers or videos. You literally just click it, just read the question and read your choices, and it puts it right in there for you. So it's reading it to them. It's giving them that chance to, find some success with multiple exposure of questions. They're having fun, they're earning money, and they can cash it in for other stuff. But super, super simple, and a great way to get some data. And that's a game changer for your progress monitoring too. I mean, it's not often that you can have something so engaging and get a full report on this question. This is who got it right. This is who got it wrong at the end. On your teacher view, it has a little button. I mean, that's all you click. It's right there. You can't miss it. And it literally breaks down every question. Tommy answered this question incorrect 4 out of 6 times. Well, I know that I'm going to have to go back and work with Tommy more on whatever that question was asking. It does a whole class average. It's absolutely wonderful. I suggest it 100% for your live sessions with small groups. It wouldn't work well with just like a one-on-one because there's nobody for them to play. Right. But for small resource groups, or even for your regular ed class, would work great.
Oh, Thank you. I love that. That sounds awesome, really. And I actually went on that website and looked, and it's not very expensive. I saw individual teacher would be like $60 a year, and
for that free trial, it's not.
And then
right,
yeah. And so, especially right now with teacher money, I mean, you're not going to buy any paper materials because your kids aren't there, so that'd be worth investing, I think. But and so on the progress monitoring note, we do want to know that it's really important that you make sure that you're aligning your measuring tool to your goal. So for example, if you have a reading comprehension goal, then you're not going to give your kid a reading fluency probe for them to read and measure how many words per minute that they got correct when you need to know how much their comprehension. So that's one note I just wanted to make sure that everybody keeps in mind is when you're looking at all these resources, make sure that you're pulling the activities that you need to monitor the correct goal, and it all lines up together. And also you had mentioned about the data that you're getting. So you can take this progress monitoring data. So, kind of, in other words, work smarter, not harder. So you've got all this data. This is what you take to when you look at your kid's IEP and you're writing their IEP, you can write their present level performance and also their goals and objectives, right? So,
absolutely.
I mean, it's all just right there. You have the hard numbers and the percentages, and it's just so and that's the whole purpose. So you can take all this information to write their IEP for them.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's the reason Dana and I spent so much time on the front end of it, going through their IEPs initially to determine how we were going to put them in the groups, which ones had reading fluency, which ones had reading comprehension, and not only that, breaking it on down into grade level. Well, so is reading on a second grade level. Well, they're reading on a third grade level. So, the materials they're going to need is very different, and that was what took us so long to get it set up the way we wanted it set up to be most beneficial for the students.
Absolutely.
But now that you've got all that, I mean, you do a lot of the work up front, but now it sounds like you guys have got it, your system, your pattern, and it sounds like your kids know what to expect as well. And so you're having a smoother year because of all of the prep work that you all did ahead of time. So
yeah, it's not been easy, but if you truly want to be effective, it's a must. For regular education students and special education students, it shouldn't be cookie cutter. Even more so with your special education students, everybody's going to need something different. And there's a lot of videos that are made. Susie may get a video that none of the other children ever see, but that's for her. She needs that. So it is a lot of work, but in order to be effective, you just you just do it. And like you said, more than anything, it has been, I know we hear this word often, it's unprecedented times, yet this has been a very smooth and rewarding school year for me thus far.
Yes.
Our community that we built is stronger than it's ever been for my special education class. And so it's a lot of work, but it's been so worth it. The reward definitely outweighs the headache of the work.
That's good.
And our parents have been very receptive. They've been very positive. And, a lot of our parents, maybe I know several of mine, they didn't finish school. So they've kind of learned along with their students, whether it be a live session or a lot of these videos, they've watched over and over, and we've had several parents call and say, several other schools, it's not working like this, but it's very smooth. My child's learning, and we've even had several students call and say, can I do another one-on-one session with you this week? I'm enjoying doing this or that, and I said, that's when you know that you're doing something right. It's when they want to spend more time with you. They want to keep working because they're feeling successful, and that's the whole point of what we're doing is we want that for our students. We want them to have that feeling of, I can do it. I can be successful.
You're right. And then once they do get back into the school, in their classroom, that confidence that you've built with them is going to carry over and they'll end up being more successful. And I'm glad, Dina, that you keep mentioning your gen ed kids, because you also, before a special education teacher, you were a general ed teacher before, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah. I've taught everything except kindergarten, including preschool. So, but I taught first grade the longest. I was in first grade for about 6 years. So while teaching first grade, I obtained my master's in special ed and decided to make the transition just because I always felt that drawing toward
but she's
struggling learners. So at gen ed background, it's always going to be there, you know. So I can't talk about one without, you know, leaving one out. So
well, I think that's
a lot
good
of this
because
works just the same.
Yeah. And I like that you have that background. That's actually, you have an advantage because you have it from both lenses. You know, you can look at that.
Mhm.
So by getting, you know, hearing your input from that, it helps all of us know that, you know, you know. So if when you say it works for general ed students, you're going to, you know, it works for general ed students because you've been there. Because a lot of us have never been in both. Some of us have. I haven't. I've always been in special education. I've never taught a regular class. So you having that that expertise in that area is very helpful as well. I think that's about it. I mean, I'm just blown away. I went through that Google Classroom that you all put some stuff in, and it's truly amazing. So I encourage you guys to join the classroom with the code. If you are not watching this live and you want to join the classroom, maybe you can just email me, I guess. Just send me an email, chasity.craft@theholler.org, and I will add you. I will be more than happy to add you because all those good resources, we want as many people out there to get them as possible. Then do we have any questions for these ladies before we?
I've been monitoring the chat. We don't have anything yet, but if you have a question, you're welcome to unmute if you like and speak, or you can put it in the chat and I'll relay it to these ladies.
I know we got a little bit behind because of our technical difficulties, but well, if we don't, guys, thank you all so much for joining us today. I mean, it's been I got excited all over again listening to it because it's just so.
Well, thank you for having us. It's an honor.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for asking.
Anybody that watches, feel free to share with us too.
And if there's any questions later on, you know, they can feel free to, you know, email us, you know, Dana and I are willing to share anything that we have or how we've done things, you know, because this is a time we're all learning together.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that too, because also with that classroom, like I said, this is kind of a regional PLC is kind of how we want it to look at. So when you're in that classroom, if you find something that if you have something in your classroom that you're doing right now that is working and awesome, drop it in that classroom in the stream for all of us to share, because that's what it's for. That is a resource for you guys to have just to pull from to make your job easier and you know, it's effective and then also easier, because if the work's already there and people are willing to share, and teachers are, I mean, that's what we do. If we have it, we're just so generous to share what we have so that to help everybody else. So that is highly encouraged for, you know, to join that and share what you have. Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm excited that we learned how to ensure that our tools match up with our goals, and I especially loved the virtual tools and the lessons that you guys shared with us, those resources, those websites to use. I love those, super excited about that. So I want to thank you all again so much. I'm just so excited. I can't say it enough. But again, if you want to know more, have a deeper understanding, go to that classroom. Also, this podcast show is going to be up on the website. We have our KVEC Special Ed webpage. You go to theholler.org on the homepage. You hover over KVEC. special education, and then there's going to be a tab that says podcast, and they're all going to be housed in there. Also, this one, we're going to put it in our Google Classroom as well. So you can have that as a reference. So you can have those either way. And of course, if you can't find it, just email me. And I hope that you can join us next week it's October 12th. We're going to have one next Monday at 3:30, and the math girls are going to be here. They're going to tell you what progress monitoring looks like in math. And Miss Vonda is going to be here again next week, but it's not going to be me. It's going to be Miss Stephanie Kidd. So they're our math people, and so they're going to talk to us and show us about math. So if you guys don't have anything else, ladies, do you have any last comments or thoughts you want to add? No? Okay.
Thank you for having us.
I know that times seem rough, guys, but just hang in there. You're making a bigger difference than what you could ever realize. You are their constant in a crazy world right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys. Until next time, we'll holler at you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.